Help me reach 2,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. It had been one of those days where every little task felt like it carried the weight of the world. Emily Harper, had been juggling emails, meetings, and deadlines at Carlton and Reeves Marketing for nearly a decade. Yet somehow, the tension in the office never seemed to ease. My husband, Ryan, often teased me for living at work. But truth was, I thrived on a routine. Or at least, I had thought I did. The day started like any other, with a hum of fluorescent lights, the low chatter of co-workers, and the occasional clack of keyboards echoing across the open floor plan. My boss, Nathan Crawford, had been unusually complimentary all morning. "Emily, you really outdid yourself in the Mason campaign," he said, his gaze lingering just a second too long. I smiled politely, deflecting the warmth with a casual, "Thanks, Nathan. Glad it worked out." Yet I felt that small, unsettling tug in the pit of my stomach. There was something in the way he looked at me, not the usual professional appreciation. By the afternoon, the office had thinned out. Most of the team had either left for client meetings or were working from home. I stayed behind, intent on finishing the last few slides for an important pitch. Nathan stopped by my desk under the pretense of reviewing my work, leaning slightly over my shoulder. At first, it was normal. He pointed out minor formatting issues, suggesting changes with a calm, controlled voice. But as minutes passed, the casual professionalism began to blur. Then it happened, a subtle movement, almost unnoticeable, but entirely deliberate. His hand brushed my arm. I froze, my heart hammering, rationalizing at first. Perhaps he was adjusting my sleeve, maybe he had lost his balance. But when his hand slid further, resting under the edge of my skirt, the reality hit me like a shockwave. My body stiffened. I wanted to pull away, to scream, to push him, yet the fear, not of him, but the office of gossip, of consequences, kept me frozen in place. I told myself to remain calm, that it would stop if I didn't react. I kept my eyes on my screen, fingers trembling as I pretended to scroll through the slides. Nathan's voice, low and almost conspiratorial, whispered something that I barely caught over the rush of my own heartbeat. Every instinct screamed at me to run, yet I stayed. And then the sound of footsteps broke the spell. Ryan, my husband, he had called to check on me, said he'd come by for a surprise lunch visit. I had laughed, brushing off the thought of him finding me at my desk. But the hallway outside had filled with the steady rhythm of his boots, and suddenly, every nerve in my body screamed danger. Nathan's hand retracted instantly, but the tension remained like a static charge in the air. I turned slowly, feeling a hot flush of panic and relief. Ryan stood there, eyes scanning the room, oblivious at first of the lingering atmosphere between us. "Hey," he said, smiling casually. "Thought I'd bring you some lunch. Sandwich from that place you like." My voice caught in my throat. Thanks." I managed to whisper, my hand shaking slightly as I accepted the bag he handed me. Nathan, trying to mask his own discomfort, nodded stiffly and stepped back. I'll let you two be," he muttered, moving toward the exit with a forced smile. Ryan leaned over my shoulder to peek at the screen. "Looks like you've been busy." His tone was warm, casual, unaware of the storm that had just passed. I wanted to scream, to tell him everything, to let the fear and humiliation spill out, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I smiled faintly, a mask of normalcy. "Yeah, just wrapping up the last bits." The remainder of the lunch was a blur. Ryan chatted about trivial things, a new series he wanted to watch, a funny incident at the grocery store, while I sat there, acutely aware of every glance, every twitch, every potential misstep from Nathan, who had lingered just outside the doorway. I felt a strange combination of relief and terror, my stomach twisting with unsaid words and unprocessed fear. Even after Ryan left, promising to pick me up early, I couldn't shake the feeling. Every shadow seemed longer, every office corner darker. Nathan's presence now felt heavier, like a weight pressing against the air. I tried to refocus on work, to force my mind onto the slides and numbers, but the memory of his hand, the cold casualness of it, kept intruding, stealing my concentration. By the time the office emptied completely, I was shaking, not from the cold, but from the adrenaline that refused to dissipate. I gathered my things quickly, checking the hallway before stepping out. My phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. Had a great lunch. Can't wait to see you tonight. Drive safe. I typed back a quick smiley face, though my hands were still trembling. And as I walked to the car, I couldn't help but feel that the day wasn't over. Not yet. The sense of looming threat, the whispered possibilities of what Nathan might try next, lingered like a shadow. I had survived this encounter, barely, but deep down, I knew this was just the beginning of a story I hadn't yet begun to tell. That evening, I couldn't bring myself to mention a word about what had happened at the office. Ryan was his usual cheerful self, asking me about my day, talking about weekend plans. Every time I opened my mouth to speak, the image of Nathan's hand slid back into my mind, making my stomach twist with a mix of fear and revulsion. I poured wine into 2 glasses, trying to calm my nerves. I wanted to tell Ryan to unburden myself, but the words felt too heavy, too shameful. "Emily, are you okay?" Ryan asked, frowning. He noticed a tremor in my hands as I set down the glasses. I forced a smile, nodding, "Yeah, just a long day." I replied. Dinner passed in uneasy silence. My thoughts kept drifting back to Nathan, his eyes, the way he leaned over me so casually as if nothing was wrong. The office felt smaller in my memory, every corner haunted by the knowledge of what had nearly happened. I knew I couldn't ignore it, yet confronting it felt impossible. A sudden ping from my phone broke my spiral. It was a message from an unknown number. I hesitated but opened it. "We need to talk. Now." No name, no context. My pulse quickened. Part of me wanted to delete it, pretend it didn't exist. But curiosity, or maybe dread, pulled me to reply, "Who is this?" The response was almost immediate. "Nathan, at the office. Alone." My hand shook. I tried to rationalize, telling myself maybe it was a prank, some cruel joke from a coworker. But the memory of the afternoon's incident made it impossible to ignore. My mind raced. Why would he text me? What did he want? I decided to ignore it, setting the phone aside. Ryan noticed my distraction. "Everything okay with work?" he asked. His voice was warm, but I sensed that if I didn't protect him from the truth, the evening could unravel. "Just a long day." I repeated more firmly this time. Later, Ryan went to the study to finish some paperwork. I remained in the living room, phone in hand, trying to distract myself with messages from friends. And then it happened. A knock at the door. My heart skipped. I wasn't expecting anyone. Opening the door, I froze. Nathan stood there, leaning casually against the frame. His smile was calm, too calm, and his eyes carried that same intensity that had left me shaken earlier. My first instinct was to slam the door, to call Ryan, to scream. But before I could move, he spoke. "Emily, I just wanted to apologize," he said, voice smooth. "Earlier, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Relief washed over me briefly, but then I caught the subtle smirk at the corner of his mouth. Something in his tone told me this wasn't entirely about apology. My instinct screamed danger. "I'm not interested," I said firmly, stepping back. "You need to leave." Before he could respond, Ryan's voice boomed from the study. "Emily? Who's at the door?" Nathan's eyes flicked toward the study. Panic, genuine, sudden, crossed his face. I seized the moment, pushing the door wide open. "Ryan, Nathan's here. He tried to touch me today." The words tumbled out, raw and trembling. Ryan was out of the study in a flash. His expression hardened, his jaw tight. Nathan, realizing he'd been caught, started to back away. It's not what you think," he stammered. But Ryan didn't wait for explanation. "You leave. Now," Ryan said, voice low but lethal. Nathan hesitated, then turned on his heel and disappeared down the driveway, his footsteps echoing in the night. I locked the door, heart hammering, shaking from adrenaline and relief. Ryan pulled me into a tight hug, whispering, "You're safe. I've got you." The next days were tense. I filed a formal complaint with HR, supported by Ryan. Nathan was suspended pending investigation. The office felt like a different place now, one where I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. but the psychological weight lingered. I replayed the incident in my mind, grappling with a mixture of anger, shame, and disbelief that someone I had trusted in a professional setting could cross such boundaries. Through it all, Ryan never left my side. He listened patiently as I recounted every detail, holding me through the tears and shaking fits that followed. Together, we created boundaries, legal, emotional, and personal, to protect not just our marriage but our peace of mind. The experience left a scar, yes, but also strengthened our bond in ways I hadn't anticipated. One quiet evening, after the office drama had begun to settle, I sat in the living room, sipping tea, reflecting on everything that had happened. The fear, the thrill, the shock. It was like living through a storm and emerging with a strange clarity. I realized that true courage wasn't in avoiding danger, but in confronting it, in leaning on the people who loved you, and in standing firm even when every instinct screamed to run. And as I looked across the room at Ryan, reading quietly, I felt a wave of gratitude mixed with a lingering adrenaline buzz. The office incident, Nathan's audacity, the danger I had narrowly escaped. It all tested me, shaken me to the core. But it also reminded me that safety, respect, and trust weren't abstract ideals. They were tangible, enforceable, and worth defending. I would never forget that day. But I would also never forget the strength that came from facing it, the resilience in standing up, the relief in walking away with the man I loved, and the life we were building together.